Hello everyone and welcome back to Coach Craig's Sports. This is the CFL DFS video for week number 20. It's going to be a little bit smaller week for week number 20 in general. There is 3 teams on bye, so there's only 3 teams, 6 games in total playing. We'll be going through my sheet talking about different players, whether or not I would play them in GPP, cash game setting, kind of a pay down or a dart throw option, and then kind of a little bit of whether or not I'll be overweight or underweight to the field. Keep in mind that CFL DFS ownership is very hard to come by just at that. So a lot of that's just going to be projections just based off of what I think is going to happen, especially in the field, but it's going to vary contest to contest as well. So we are going to start off with the BC Lions. They are playing the Calgary Stampeders this week. We got Vernon Adams Jr. at $13,500. Obviously been a really consistent quarterback over the weeks. Did deal with a little bit of a knee injury last week. He does have no injury designation after practicing full. So he looks like a GPP option. I have GPP if he plays. If we get any other news that he doesn't play or he's not going to start for some reason, then we'll ultimately pivot over to a different quarterback. Dane Evans would be a pretty popular option in that situation, but their depth chart did come out and he was still listed as the starter for Vernon Adams. So no real concerns there. Obviously, probably going to be in line with the field on him, maybe slightly overweight to the field, even though that price tag is pretty high this week. And then at running back, Taekwon Mazel is going to be on the 1-game IR once again. He did practice in full all week due to his rib injury. Didn't have an injury designation, but he's not listed on the depth chart. So Jaquan Hardy will be the running back this week. He's $7,300. You know, if you really want to throw him out there as kind of a filler, contrarian play, you can do it, but a limited upside there at that. But, you know, could ultimately end up working out, especially on a 6-game slate where we only have so many options in total. For wide receivers, kind of the one that we were watching was Keon Hatcher. He popped up on the injury list on Thursday due to a hamstring injury, was listed as questionable, but he is listed as starting on the depth chart, so he should be fine. If you want to roll him out in GPPs, you can, but $12,700, pretty high price tag there. Dominique Rhymes behind him at $11,200, very viable GPP option. Alexander Holland's been really good so far this year, and especially if Hatcher is limited, looks like a pretty interesting option in GPPs. And then I have Devon Katoy at $4,100 as a pay down option if you really want to get there, especially on the smaller slate this week. You know, if you really want to get to Lucky Whitehead at $8,000 as kind of filler contrarian play, you could definitely do that as well. And then for that BC Lions defense, I have them as my cash game defense for this week at $4,500. Going against Calgary should be a pretty attractive matchup for them and a pretty decent defense for BC overall. So mainly, you know, when we're looking at BC, Vernon Adams is going to be pretty appealing, maybe slightly overweight to the field on him, kind of mix and match in some of those wide receivers, and then sneaking in that BC Lions defense this week. Then we're going to move down to the Calgary Stampeders. You know, Jake Mears there at $9,000. You know, if you really want to play him as kind of a contrarian play, you could do that. Not really getting there myself personally. That running back situation, we do have Dedrick Mills on the 1-game IR once again. Kadeem Carey was decent last week, so at $6,500, if you really want to play him in GPPs, you could. So maybe that's one that would pan out, maybe a little bit of filler. But, you know, a 6-game slate, it's not the worst play in the world. And then Peyton Logan behind him came back off IR last week. You know, $5,500, more like a dart throw there, but a little bit too expensive for that for my taste. Then we get down to the wide receiver position. So Reggie Begelton is back this week. He's $10,700. Very viable GPP option. Probably in line ultimately on the field with him. He was able to practice in full all week due to his chest injury. Missed last week. Should be back this week. Is listed on that depth chart. And then kind of from there, you know, we got Mark and Michelle at $7,400 GPP option there. Once again, him and Begelton have kind of been the main 2 guys. And then past that, not really too interested in anybody else. You know, if you want to get to Luther at $2,900, could be a pay down option there. Clark Barnes is still on IR. Then we got Trey Dukes Odoms as kind of another wide receiver there at $6,500, a little bit too pricey. And then Colton Hong Chunk and Tyson Milmos will both be active as well. And then we got Floyd Allen, who scored a touchdown last week, and Ricer John going back to the practice squad for this week overall. And then for that Stampeders defense, they've shown flashes this year, but against the BC Lions, not too high on them this week overall. So it just kind of be a dart throw option if you want to go there ultimately. Then we're going to move down to our 2 Saturday games. So we're going to start off with the Toronto Argonauts. Don't really know who's the starting quarterback at this point in time. Chad Kelly's probably not playing. So it could be Cameron Dukes, could be Brian Scott. You know, you could look at either one in GPP. If it does ultimately end up being Chad Kelly, we'll leave a note down in the video as well as the depth charts when those do come out tomorrow. I'm filming this on Thursday, so those ones will be coming out on Friday. We already got the depth charts for the Friday game as well. And then at running back, AJ Alouette was able to practice Tuesday and Wednesday. He was a healthy scratch last week. Don't expect him to play this week. Andrew Harris still on IR. So Daniel Odoboye, probably mispronouncing his name, but at $3,100, like him as kind of a GPP paydown option this week. So if you're paying up at other positions, looks like a pretty good, solid running back play there. And then they got Deontay McMahon, who did score the touchdown last week at $6,300. Could probably consider him a GPP option as well. Then for our wide receivers, we got Curly Gittens and Cam Phillips, both on IR, both did not practice so far this week. And then Devaris Daniels, who had a pretty good game last week at $9,200, limited on Wednesday due to a hamstring injury. We'll see what his injury report looks like later today as well, if he plays or not this week. Last week, he was pretty involved. I think they want to get him over that 1,000 yards receiving for the season. So would not be surprised if he's a factor once again this week, but wouldn't be surprised if he gets ruled out as well. And then we got Devontae Cooks, the only 2 targets last week, so not too high on him. I kind of like David Unger, the third, as a GPP option. He had a pretty strong week last week. With some of these other guys not playing, could make him pretty interesting overall. Then you got Tommy Neal, DeJuan Brissett, if you want to use them as paydown options, could go there once again. And then Richie Senandini was active last week. If Devaris Daniels misses, we probably see Jeremiah Haydell active as well. Just kind of a lot of moving pieces here for Toronto overall. And then we get down to their defense at $5,400. Really expensive defense going against the Rough Riders. There is opportunities there. We'll see who ultimately ends up playing for this Argonauts defense. They're probably going to rest a couple guys here and there. So kind of a GPP option there. A little bit more than I would like to play in terms of price tag. So maybe a little bit underweight to them. So for Toronto overall, might have some interest in the quarterback depending on who ends up starting, have some interest in that running back position, have some interest here and there for some of their wide receivers as well. And then we're going to move down to the Rough Riders. So Jake Delgado, I do have him listed as a GPP play just because of the upside that he could have, and it's only a 6-game main slate. Probably still underweight to the field on him, though, once again at $8,800. And then at running back, Jamal Morrow came back pretty strong last week, $9,300. I think he's going to be a pretty big part of their team once again. So I would call him a GPP option once again, probably a little bit overweight to the field on him. And then for their wide receivers, right now it's really like Samuel Emilus, Schaefer Baker, and Jared Stearns is kind of GPP options, not any major stands on any one of them. If I want to get to one of them, probably more than the rest, maybe it's Jared Stearns just because of the cheaper price tag. But, Tevin Jones been bothered a little bit by that hamstring injury as of late. Sean Bain hasn't been doing quite as much as of late. He gets a lot of catches, but not a lot of yards in the recent games. So that's kind of where I'm at for that. That Rough Riders defense, if you really want to play them against the Argonauts, maybe it's Brian Scott that gets the start. So maybe they're a GPP paydown option if you want to go that direction this week. Could make some sense there, just depending on who ultimately ends up playing and who doesn't for Toronto this week. And then we move down to the Elks. Trey Ford is a GPP option once again. He does have that strong rushing upside. $10,800, probably a little bit overweight to the field on him. If you want to put Kevin Brown in your lineups, make some sense there. $8,200, not a bad price tag. Probably would be a little bit underweight to the field on him this week, though. And then at wide receiver, mainly looking at Geno Lewis at $8,700 and Kyron Moore at $6,100. If you really want to take that shot on Gavin Cobb, who had the strong week 2 weeks ago, you could do that as kind of a pay down option. But nobody else really truly stands out here. We did see Dantez Alexander active last week and returning some punts, so maybe he gets involved there. But Kyron Moore was also returning some punts, as well as Gavin Cobb in the return game as well. So kind of a messy situation there. And then for that Elks defense, I don't mind their defense at $3,300, but going against the Blue Bombers, it's not a very attractive matchup, and they still have a lot of players banged out or potentially missing this week, so not my favorite one there. And then we get down to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Zach Collaros is $12,000. Coming fresh off that bye, do like the upside that he does present in GPPs, so maybe slightly overweight to the field on him. And then we got Brady Oliveira at $12,000 GPP option, probably in line with the field on him. Ultimately this week, if you're playing him, you're just going to have to pay down at a couple other spots just to make sure that you do get him in there. And then for their wide receiver unit, Dalton Shane, $11,800. He has not practiced Tuesday or Wednesday this week due to an ankle injury, so we'll see if he ultimately is able to go this week or not. Obviously, we'll get that news later today, early tomorrow, in terms of the injury report and the depth chart. So if he ultimately misses, Drew Wolters-Iski could be pretty interesting in his place. He's kind of that guy that steps up when one of these top wide receivers is missing. Otherwise, we're looking at Nick Dubinsky and Kenny Lawler as GPP options at $10,000 and $10,500 respectively. Maybe you sneak in a Rasheed Bailey here and there as well. well. And then for that Blue Bombers defense, still a pretty viable GPP option going against the Edmonton Elks, although they have kind of struggled versus the mobile quarterbacks so far this season. But that's kind of what I got in terms of quick DFS hitter for CFL DFS for week number 20. Only one more week left of the regular season after this week, so that will be my last DFS video for CFL DFS for this season. Hopefully you guys have all enjoyed this process. If there's anything else you'd like to see in the future, be sure to let me know down in the comments. And if you guys have any questions whatsoever regarding CFL DFS, be sure to drop them down there as well. I'll be listing those depth charts as they do come out down in those comments as well. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I do have at this point in time. If you are brand new to my channel, checking it out for the very first time, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now we have the CFL DFS video once a week. We got NFL DFS, plus my cheat sheets over on the Sports Affiliation website. And then very soon we'll be having NBA DFS Monday through Friday in terms of my daily core picks. So definitely be sure to look out for that for both DraftKings and FanDuel. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I do have at this point in time. Also be sure to check out the links in the description below for BetUS, Prize Picks, and Parlay Play. If you're into prop betting, if you're into sports betting whatsoever, first time you're using it, use the link or the code down below and you'll get a little bit of extra benefit there. Helps you guys out a little bit getting started with that. Helps me out a little bit on the side as well. But once again, that's all that I truly have for CFL DFS for week number 20. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning into this video. Hopefully each and every one of you have a great rest of your day, no matter what day you're watching this on. A pretty good weekend overall and some pretty good luck in CFL DFS for week number 20.